All right, welcome to Wealth Cartel, where hindsight's a motherfucker.
Our mission is to stop people saying, I wish I had a listen, and to help people capitalise on everyone else's mistakes before making them themselves.
In summary, our tagline says it all: turn our hindsight into your foresight.
So we're just a couple of lads from the west and the central coast who grew up without really any wealth around us and used it to motivate us to make something of ourselves.
Along the way, mainly as we matured, we did a lot of things right, but more importantly, we made a lot of mistakes.
A lot of mistakes that could have been avoided by not being know-it-alls and actually listening to what others had told us instead of thinking, no, not me. So my name's Akko. I'm a small business owner with a bunch of franchises called Pen on Picasso at the moment, with large plans of building a large business portfolio.
I'm Kingy. I'm a financial advisor looking to break the mold on what good advice should look like and start teaching people how to enjoy life to the fullest while also planning for tomorrow out of my business, 3 Kings Wealth Management.
On 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome to the Wealth Cartel podcast, episode 19. This is our last one with a guest for the year. As you can see, the man himself, Dan Atkinson, didn't make it. Big night at the Hunt fight. Pretty weak if you ask me, but we'll move on. He'll see this and I'll keep giving him shit throughout the whole podcast. He can't back himself up, so it's an easy win for me. Today we have Jacinta Jade Austin, the Juggernaut, who is recently the WKBF Commonwealth Flyweight title. She has 11 titles under her belt. She fights out of Sydney at Karaoke MMA in Hornsby. Welcome, Jacinta. How are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good, thanks. How you going?
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We appreciate you. Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to stop saying we today because Dan's not here.
Not Dan. Dan doesn't appreciate.
No, fuck Dan. He'll hate that when he sees that. So welcome today. What's going on? What's going on in your life?
Just the usual, trying to smash out training, trying to work a full-time job, trying to get ready for Christmas.
Are you going to keep training through Christmas?
Yeah, definitely. I'm been trying for months now to get a fight. So I've got to try and stay ready for like anything that comes up early in the new year.
Is that a COVID side effect? Is just you got to stay ready now? There's no real fight camp. It's just stay ready until the fight comes up and then go for it.
Pretty much, but it's always recently it's been that way for me for about a year or so. It just gets harder to get matches as you fight more. So I have to be like, I did have a fight scheduled for 2 weeks ago, and that chick pulled out. So you just got to be ready for if someone pulls out, in or I just want.
Do you get any call ups for overseas fights?
I fought overseas twice. They weren't really call ups though; they were scheduled.
Yeah, okay. Because we're talking to Danielle Hayes a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying like she got to the point where she was just she flew to Vegas one weekend because she just couldn't get a fight. No one fight her.
Yeah, I heard about.
Yeah, so
hard for females.
And it's so hard for female. The pool in Australia, like it's getting so good, but the pool in Australia, especially if you're the top end of the females, you know, in Australia especially, it's very hard, very, very hard to get there. And I think we talked about this last time. In about 5-10 years, I think it'll be much easier because there's a lot of females starting now, but they're obviously not going to jump in the ring with you straight up. You know what I mean? Like
you gotta it's hard to find someone who's got the same experience with you as you within the country.
And with traveling restrictions, it's hard to even consider the overseas stuff. You know?
Yeah. 100%. So try and stay ready so that if someone says there's an opportunity in 3 weeks' time, that I can be ready for it.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, eh?
That's it.
All right, so Jacinta, hit us up. Tell us who you are, where you're from, you know, what was life like growing up, and go from there.
Okay. So I started martial arts firstly about 6 years ago. Just sort of went with a friend to the gym because I sort of had a little idea in my head since I was a kid that I wanted to do something combat sports related.
Why was that? Why is that? How did that start?
I don't know. I think it's just because I watched a lot of like Karate Kid, and I loved it when and just whatever else was on. I loved it when the female was like badass character of the show or the movie. When the female could I just loved seeing like girls be able to.
So were you like a Charlie's Angel fan?
Yeah.
Lucy Liu just kicking ass.
Yeah. Mum and Dad didn't really want me to do any of that sort of stuff. If you haven't been involved in martial arts before, you don't quite understand what it's about. It's often viewed as just like violence or
yeah.
draw blood from someone, or if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. So when I moved out of home quite young at 16, I took it upon myself to find a gym and start training. And I found one just around where I was living, which was St. Mary's at the time. And lucky for me, I found like a awesome trainer straight away, awesome team. I dare say he's not very well known, but I've got to say he's probably one of the best trainers in Australia. Like if you look at some of the fighters,
So who was he? Give him a shout out.
His name, he's not my trainer anymore. His name's Shane Hinton. Yeah. He's retired. So
okay.
Yeah. But we had a good 5-year stint together. It was good.
I think if you're gonna be a female starting out in the fight world, I think somewhere from the West is always good. You're gonna have some good competition around there anyway.
100%. And those old
hood mentality.
Trainers, man, those old school trainers, they have their old school ways of teaching. And
I love training. I love training out in the West as well, because especially like we grew up St. Mary's as well, and that way like there's a lot of islanders, and they don't even know how to. They don't even need to know how to fight, and they're a good training tool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plus, living in St. Mary's, you got to know how to.
You want to catch that train, you got to be able to throw hands.
And the gym was next to the train station, so you've got to be prepared.
You had to fight the junkies to get through the front door. Shout out St. Mary's. We like St. Mary's.
Yeah, I still go there. I love it.
Best cafe ever in St. Mary's. I can't remember what it's called now, but it was on that corner. You know that new one that popped up?
Cassandra's?
Yeah, Cassandra's.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that joint. I used to go there after the gym. It was the best. It came out of nowhere too. When I moved back for the second time, then that's when I went out and I was like, yeah, this is my jam. I love it.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more. So you moved out of home, you started fighting, and then how did the journey go from there?
The journey, so my trainer Shane, he's very old school. He sort of chucked me in wherever possible. So kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing. He chucked me into MMA once with no training. He just chucked me into any opportunity that came up, any weight class. I fought all the way from 53 kilos up to one of my opponents was 65 kilos. So he just chucked me in anywhere, and we took any fight that came up. Rather than, sometimes I would question him. I'd go, oh, but she's 65 kilos and I'm 57. And he'd go, you'll be right. Just don't clinch. He would just say, just use your movement.
Just don't clinch.
Just don't clinch. And so what did I do? I tried to clinch and I got thrown out of the ring because she was just too strong. And then the rest of the fight, I didn't clinch, and it worked.
He's the old chuck in the deep end and learn how to swim, mate.
I'm so thankful. Like so many people, they just pick and choose every fight. Has to be this weight, this rules on this show. They pick everything, but not him. He would chuck me in everywhere, and I think I learned so much from that, and I got very, very tough.
I think that's a big thing too, especially with the Australian scene. The pool's so small still at the moment, especially for females, that you have to take fights. If you want to fight
every rule, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And I think as the scene moves forward, I think we'll see that on the top end. I think we're seeing it with Volk now, and we're seeing it with a couple of the guys as well in the big time. Looking at Arlene across in Bellator, and you can see it. They just show up. They're just like anyone, any place, any time, turn up, because it's a privilege to get a fight. Because growing up in Australia, you didn't really you don't really get to pick your fights. If you want to fight, you got to say yes. And
otherwise, you'll go a year or two without fighting.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you get to you look at the Thais, for example, that have 3 million fights a day. You know what I mean?
They don't even weigh them. They just look at them and go, "Oh yeah, you look the same as you."
But look at the toughness that breeds. You know what I mean? Now I do get it from a professional stance that you got to. There is a point where it becomes a career, and you do have to protect your fighter and be smart. Learning,
in your amateur
that's right.
days.
You just got to get in there and have a scrap. There's everyone. You got to get punched somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So we had I think I had 21 fights with Shane, under Shane.
Yeah, right.
Inclusive of kickboxing, K1, Muay Thai, and boxing as well.
Did you do it much? Was that all amateur or was it all?
That was all amateur.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I've had 2 pro fights.
Okay.
So I only turned pro last year.
Yeah.
And then with COVID.
That's good. That's good that you had. Some people just jump into the pros too quick, don't they? Like they.
Yeah.
And it's very different, especially the rule changes depending on what you're wearing as well.
Yeah. Well, I suggested to him maybe like a year before it happened that I wanted to go pro, and he sort of said, yes, let's make it a goal, but let's achieve all these certain things first and make sure that you make all your mistakes now, and by the time you turn pro that you actually look like a pro in there. You don't just look like someone who's decided, hey, I might try and make a living out of becoming a pro.
100%. I think we sponsor, and we had Charles Joyner on the thing as well. Yeah. And he's a good advocate for that because he's had quite a few amateur fights.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm not sure exactly how many, but it was quite a few. He's been fighting for like a few years now, and I think it's his 3rd pro fight or something. And it shows, he got in there and he just won whatever title, or the cruiserweight title last week or the week before.
Yeah, I saw.
And I sponsored him for that fight, and I was worried because he's an amazing fighter, but I thought he's only had a small amount of pro fights, and the guy he was fighting was an Islander, and we know that when Islanders get touched up, they just duck their chin and they throw for the win. I thought, and you see a lot of amateurs, especially in boxing as well. You see a lot of amateurs, they go from the headgear to the no headgear or whatever, and they come out and they don't you can get hit with some shots with headgear on and still be all right. Yeah. And they get too cocky, their hands are a bit more down and stuff. And in that instance, I thought, if he gets this bloke and this bloke catches him with one of those, it's a different feeling to if he's got the headgear on or whatever, right?
And the gloves get smaller as well.
Yeah, 100%. And people don't see that stuff. But he didn't. He fought brilliantly, and you could tell that his amateur fights, his training, he kept everything at range, and it was really good. But you see a lot of people make that transition too quickly, and they've rocked a few people in amateurs, and they think they're good to go, and they come in with their hands down, and boom, head kick, sleep, see you later. I think it's really important that I think a lot of fighters lose that amateur. They're too keen, too gun ho to get in, and I think you can really see the difference sometimes.
Yeah, you feel the difference when you fight an amateur who's maybe training 5 hours a week, and then when you fight a pro who's training 15 hours a week, you can feel the difference. Like, it's not just a fight for fun anymore. It's let's fight to see who's better.
Yeah, and it's a lot more technical too.
Yeah.
I think you see it as well in the cardio space as well. Like, the biggest thing in any fighting in Australia, especially, is most people have to have full-time jobs still in Australia, and their training, obviously, they can only get in as much as they can get in. And you see that transition from amateurs to pros in that as well, where towards the couple of rounds in, where that gas tank goes and then technique's gone, nothing remembers, and you can see that big difference where someone who's really into it in training, and they become a fighter. It's no longer just a scrap. They're an actual. They become a fighter.
Composure for the whole fight.
That's brilliant. So you moved. You've done that. You're there now. So what? Why did you? Tell us a bit about what the big switch was. Like, there was obviously a point at the start where you were just doing it, haven't dipped my toe in the ball. Where was the switch for you to go, no, this is what I want to do? And what, it's a bloody, we had Danielle Weber on last week, who's a professional artist, right? Which is, it's a hard industry to be a professional in as well, and just similar stuff. And same with female fighters. Like, it's a big call to say, I'm going to do this, you know what I mean? It's a hard slog to make at the moment. In that way, what was the turning point? What was the mindset switch for you to go, I'm going to do this? And how did you go about it? How did you really take that leap and put it all in?
Well, as I was talking about with my old trainer Shane chucking me in everywhere, I actually fought a lot of pro girls while I was amateur. The reason being that New South Wales rules is so strict, so that as soon as you go outside New South Wales, you can take your headgear off and still be an amateur. You can fight anyone outside of New South Wales, but New South Wales is really strict. Yeah. So when we'd go interstate, so Queensland and Melbourne and stuff, I was fighting a lot of professional girls, and I was beating them, all of them. So in my head, the level to be a professional fighter was so much higher than I found out that it was. I mean, not saying these girls were good or that I wasn't good, but I just, I think on my 6th fight, I fought a girl with 30 professional fights and I won. So that was sort of just an eye opener that if I really wanted to, like, why can't I do this? Can't it be me that does this? So yeah, I made it a goal after I beat my first pro opponent. Her name's Brooke Cooper. Shout out to her. She's still fighting very well. After I beat her, I sort of had a brain snap and I was like, this is the professional Australian Muay Thai champion and I just beat her. So why can't I do the same thing?
So you were saying before you had like your parents weren't as supportive at the start and that kind of stuff. How did you, so there's one instance with stuff like this where we tell ourselves and we make the switch, but there's a lot more to it, right? Like there's the execution side of it. There's the support of you around you. How did you not just think you were going to take that step, but what were the things you did to actually go into it and stick to it, right? And there's a lot of people that make a decision and then a year later go, no, scrap that. It's too much. Like what were the steps you took to make it actually happen? And how did you go with the support around you and build that up with your family, friends, etc.?
To start training or to go pro or? To
go pro. So the moment you had that brain snap to say, this is me, I'm going to do this. How did you then execute that and take the step forward and keep up with it, keep the motivation up, and as well as the support around you to do so?
Okay, well, I've never really had the support of my family. They still dislike
Even to now?
Even to now. I probably couldn't be doing anything worse in their eyes. But, that's quite common. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of fighters out there whose families are not supportive of it. My favorite line actually is when you end up in a wheelchair, don't say I told you so. So I mean that sort of
have fun living the life you don't like then. If I'm in a wheelchair, I'll end up in a wheelchair doing something I loved. I had a crack.
Exactly. Something will get me eventually. So
yeah, we're all gonna die somehow. I think just to jump in quickly and we'll go back to yours in a bit, but this is something that I really like. For my business, my financial planning business, one of the things that I love dealing with female athletes. I love it. Like I love the female athlete space. I love dealing with female athletes, and it's inspiring because it's probably one of the hardest industries in Australia at the moment to get by, right? Females in sport. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the curvature of growth is going to be super quick. We're seeing that, because it's starting to gain momentum, and they want to get women to where men are quicker now. So, now compared to 5 or 10 years ago, the growth curve is going to be much quicker. But I love this side of it because, it started when we started talking to Arlene. We've talked to Danielle Hayes and we've talked to Janae Harding and all these fighters, women. The common denominator is they're so peaceful within their lives, and they're so confident. And I'm confident with all of you that I've spoken to that the lessons that you've taken from fighting, whether it becomes your whole career or not, fighting can never be anyone's whole career. It's a short-term opportunity, right? You've got to stop at some point. But the lessons you learn from that to bring into daily life, into business, they're unbeatable. Anyone who's grown up fighting any kind of martial arts, 99% of the people you surround yourself with are some of the best people you'll ever meet, because that ego's gone. You have that sense of inner peace, that you're confident within yourself enough to not be a jerk, to not walk around, but you're confident enough to hold yourself in a way that's respectable and that kind of stuff. And that's the message I think fighting really, I want to see get out into the public, because everyone just sees, you watch your Connors and you watch your press conferences and you think, these guys are all just brutes. The chicks must be the same. But every fighter I meet, 99% of them are just some of the best people ever. And it comes from the values instilled from the martial arts, And I was talking to Arlene about it. We want to get that story out. Her life, the way that fighting has changed her life for the good.
Yeah, I listened to her podcast. I didn't know all that stuff about her, so
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And she's one of the best people you will ever meet, right? And I think that story is that's where the support will come in from the community, from your family, from your friends. When they see that stuff, people think you're just going and then getting punched in the head, but there's heaps worse things than getting punched in the head out there. Heaps worse things. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But yeah, anyway, so you went there, you don't have the support of your family. So what were the other steps that you took and to really have a crack and keep up and keep that motivation up?
Well, I've always had like the gym atmosphere has always been amazing. When I first came to UTC, I was the only girl there. And so I was
Are you
training.
fighting the boys?
Yeah, always training with the boys. Yeah. Mixing it in with the boxing boys just to get like trying to find the smaller guys to train with. But after, the wins kept coming and the titles kept coming, it was sort of like maybe like a lot of girls in the area started congregating towards UTC because we all have the same problem of not having other girls to train with. So I think once they sort of saw what I was achieving, we all started sort of like Arlene is doing with girls now. We all started congregating, and the girls start congregating together because, when you're training with a guy, you always sort of, if they like sweep you or submit you or friggin' punch you in the face, you always sort of have this like excuse in the back of your head.
Because it's
like,
a guy.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's a guy. He has more strength than me. Don't worry about it. But when a girl does that to you, especially a girl your size, it's like bullshit. Like,
yeah, that's a really good point.
Legit got me, and she could be a legit opponent, like hypothetically.
That's a really good point, actually. That's a good point to bring up.
Yeah, the girls I get pushed more by girls because it's realistic, and if they genuinely land a clean shot or genuinely take you down or submit you, you lost. That's it. And I think you just sort of go, oh, well, he has superhuman strength. So,
and I think it's like even like I never even thought of that, but that's a really good point because I even know when I've trained with girls, and don't get me wrong, I've trained some girls that probably tear me up, but if we were going 100%, but even as the guy, you're hesitant.
Yeah, like, the guys will hesitate. Some don't, but a lot do.
But you pull your punches and stuff, so it's not even for you as a female. It's not even realistic for you to train because things are slower. That's a really good point. I never even thought of that. That's actually really good.
They have no mercy on each other. No.
Yeah, like guys do on each other too.
We'll try and like bash the shit out of each other and then go get coffee together. Like, great. It's great. So out of the gym community, the girls started all coming together. There was a point where we had about 6 or 7 active female fighters, which were all in about maybe 8 to 10 kilos of each other. So we had a really good circle going. Yeah. So
what's it like now at the gym you're at now?
The gym I'm at now, there's a lot more. So it's not just kickboxing. It's an MMA gym, so there's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, everything. And what I need at the moment is, I don't need a girl that can stand with me because I've done that for long enough. I need a girl who can take me down and out wrestle me and pin me and submit me. That's what I need. And there's so many good girls at Karaoke. Like, I probably have about like 7 or 8 girls around my weight that can really push me in the grappling side. And then a couple with the striking as well. So it's perfect. And I still frequent UTC and train with those girls as well. So it's a great combination.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a bit about your story and where you came from, what you did. Let's go into a bit of the chat now about the hindsight stuff. Now, just to clarify, so you're still working full time?
Yeah. So
you still got that balance on your hands?
Apart from like right now, where I could be in the office, but I'm not. Yes, I work. Yes.
That's great. And this is the part people miss. We talk about the footy players back in the 60s and 70s when they, the NRL players, when they'd smoke at halftime and drink and they still have full-time jobs on the side. And that's really where the MMA game is now. There's only a very small percentage of people that aren't. Like, I know Arlene just quit her job last week, I think, like her full-time job. She just fought for the world title and she just quit. Like, she'll bring it to perspective for people, like, and fighting is one of the hardest sports to train for in the world. Like, it's phenomenal that you can balance that. I love talking to fighters because when people tell me they don't have time, I just laugh. You know what I mean? I just go,
yeah, you'll make the time. It's like a relationship. If you want to, you'll make the time. If you don't want to, you won't.
100%. So let's go back and look at some things that you did well or didn't do so well. Like, how old are you now?
26.
26. So we're still early on in our journey, but there's definitely some things that we can look back and say, you know, if you could change, or if you did that thing. We want to talk about things that you did do well, that got you, that you would do over again, that definitely helped you on your journey, and things that maybe if you could go back and, you know, it's hard. This hindsight thing's hard because a lot of the things we didn't do well made us who we are today. Yeah, the mistakes we made, and we wouldn't trade them up. But what we're not trying to say don't make mistakes. We're trying to just give insights to other people, younger people and stuff, to say when they come to something like that, they can just have a bit more of an open mind and consider it, you know, like and think about it to see if it's the right choice for them. So before we get into the triangle of happiness, is there any, if you look back on your life, is there any one moment, no specific thing around it, but one moment or one time in your life that really was a big change for you into what you're doing today?
Like combat sport related, or
just life, like maybe your mindset, maybe combat sports, like just a point that you can picture that happened to you, or that your mindset shifted, that, you know, you sort of look back now and go, that was a point that really was an important part of my journey.
The biggest, so I can put it down to two big things that have happened, without getting into sort of too much detail. Was first one would be when I did move out of home at such a young age. I look at 16-year-olds now and I think, like, you can't live on your own. You're a child. Stay with your mother.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's not like I had a good parents. I didn't have a bad family. But I was living a lifestyle that I didn't want to live anymore. So they are very, very strongly religious. And when you're a part of the religion, maybe you don't think about it as much, but when you take a step outside, it's very much like a cult. So it is genuinely, I did it for 16 years, and as you get to a teenager is when you start questioning things. Yeah. And when those questions can't be answered, you start asking more questions. And I just wasn't happy with the lifestyle, you know. The religion and the church came before everything. It came before your family, your friends, came before work, came before everything. Yeah. So moving away from that was a huge step, where I had to pretty much say goodbye to everyone that was in my life, because you only surround yourself with others that are part of that religion. Yeah. So you have to say goodbye to everyone that you know in that religion. So I think it's important just to say, just to jump in on that just quickly. So this is, for everyone watching, you know, this is Jacinta's journey, right? Like we're talking about Jacinta's journey here. So I don't want to have any bullshit people commenting and saying, you know, what they think of what Jacinta's saying. This is her journey. This is what got her to where she is, and this is part of her thing, and something that's really a big part of her life. So, because we do get, because I'm from my family from Mount Druitt is Mormon as well, and we, you know, I understand. I'm not Mormon myself. I'm not religious at all, but I get exactly what you're saying. But, you know, religion can be a big argumentative point. I just want to make it very clear that we're not going to cop any shit on that front. This is Jacinta's journey to talk about. No problem with religious people. I get along with everyone. But just for me, it wasn't for me. And they're all like, religious people are probably like some of the most good people you'll meet. Like they are genuinely good and caring and kind and good people. But just the way they sort of put the religion for everything in life. And it's important that we talk about this on one of the big things we talk about is being conscious to live you get one shot at life, right? Like you get one shot, and being conscious to do what makes you feel good inside. And if religion makes you feel good, and then you understand that 100%. But in this case, Jacinta's saying that it didn't make her feel good, and that's what I respect. You know, I respect that you understood what you didn't like, and you changed it. I'm sick of seeing people. I hate seeing people live their whole life complaining and being miserable, and then keep doing the same thing over and over again. So that's inspiring. Like religion's a hard thing to get out of, and it's a big leap of faith getting out of the faith. You know, so I respect that heavily, and I think it's a really good lesson for people to understand that. And it's not about religion or not religion. It's about the fact that on Jacinta's journey that you saw that
you felt that wasn't right for you and you did something about it. And that's amazing. I highly respect that.
Thank you.